My friend, let me ask you something very personal but also very important. Have you noticed yourself waking up more often at night to go to the bathroom? Do you ever feel like you just can't fully empty your bladder no matter how hard you try? Or maybe there's that constant, dull discomfort that you can't quite put your finger on, but it lingers, making you uneasy. If you're over 60, and especially if you're a man, these little warning signs might not just be the price of getting older. They could be telling you that your prostate is inflamed, and if left unchecked, that inflammation could change your life in ways you don't want. I had a patient not too long ago. We'll call him George. George was 67, a proud grandfather who loved spending afternoons teaching his grandson how to fish. But his fishing trips were constantly being interrupted, not by the tug of a fish on his line, but by his body's endless call to the bathroom. He laughed it off at first, saying, "Doc, I guess my bladder is just as impatient as my grandson." But as time went on, George started to notice more than just frequent trips. He had trouble starting his stream. He felt discomfort in his lower abdomen, and he started to avoid long drives altogether because he was afraid he wouldn't make it to a restroom in time. This is what led him to my office, worried, embarrassed, and ready to give up the parts of life he loved most. And it's men like George that I want to speak to today, because I know so many of you are quietly dealing with the same thing. Now, before I go further, let me introduce myself properly. My name is Dr. Nolan Easton. I've spent over 30 years as a men's health specialist, walking side by side with men through the challenges of aging, everything from energy and intimacy to circulation and prostate health. I know these conversations aren't always easy. Many men feel embarrassed, or they shrug things off as just part of getting old. But I'm here to tell you, with all the warmth and honesty I can give you, that suffering in silence is not the answer. When your prostate is inflamed, it doesn't just affect your bathroom habits. It steals your sleep, your confidence, your energy, and even your intimacy. And that's why we need to have this conversation together. The truth is, there are hidden factors in everyday life that are quietly fueling prostate inflammation. Men often don't realize how much their diet, their daily habits, and even their stress levels are contributing to the problem. This isn't just a medical issue, it's a quality of life issue. And when you take control of it, you don't just feel relief physically, you regain the freedom to live on your terms again. Imagine George again. He came into my office, tired and frustrated, but after making a few targeted changes, his story shifted. Within months, he was back to enjoying full afternoons fishing with his grandson without constantly worrying about where the nearest bathroom was. That's the kind of transformation I want for every one of you watching today. And listen, before we go deeper, I want to pause and ask something small but important from you. If you're finding this message speaking to you even a little, please go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Tap the little bell so you never miss when I release new advice. And do me one more favor. Type yes in the comments below if you've ever felt some of these prostate-related frustrations, or no if you haven't. I personally go through those comments, and it helps me understand exactly what you need most so I can tailor these talks to serve you better. Now, let's talk about what's really going on inside your body when your prostate becomes inflamed. You see, the prostate is a small gland, about the size of a walnut, but don't let its size fool you. It plays a major role in a man's health. As you age, though, the gland becomes more vulnerable. When inflammation sets in, it can swell and press on the urethra, which is the tube that carries urine from your bladder out of your body. That's why you struggle to start your flow, why the stream feels weak, and why you end up making repeated trips to the bathroom, especially at night. But here's the part most men don't realize. Inflammation isn't random. It's not just your body betraying you. It's often fueled by everyday choices, things you eat, habits you've carried for years, and even stress levels. Think of it like a fire. If you toss fuel on it every day, it'll never go out. And in your prostate, that fire of inflammation creates swelling, irritation, and eventually bigger health issues. George's story is a perfect example. He had no idea that some of his favorite foods were actually acting like lighter fluid on his prostate. Foods high in processed fats, heavy in sugar, and even too much red meat were creating the perfect storm for inflammation. Add in the fact that George was carrying around extra weight and his prostate never stood a chance. Once we identified and adjusted those habits, the difference was life-changing. This is why I'm warning you today, not to scare you, but to empower you. Too many men wait until things get unbearable before they act. They accept restless nights, constant bathroom trips, and lost intimacy as their new normal. But it doesn't have to be that way. With the right awareness and some small but powerful changes, you can calm the fire of inflammation and restore your comfort, your freedom, and your quality of life. I want you to think about what that would mean for you personally. Imagine being able to sit through a movie with your wife without having to run out 3 times. Picture taking a road trip without worrying about every single rest stop on the map. And yes, imagine having the confidence in your body again to feel fully alive, intimate, and present. These are not small things. They are the moments that make life rich and worth living, and they are exactly what I want to help you reclaim. That's why in this video, we're going to walk step by step through what inflames your prostate and what you can do to stop it. George found his way back to joy, and I know you can too. It all starts with knowledge, awareness, and the courage to take action. And I promise you, if you stick with me, you're going to come away with not just information, but hope, real, practical hope for a better, healthier tomorrow. When George and I first sat down to go over what might be fueling his prostate inflammation, he looked at me with that familiar expression many men have. It was a mix of disbelief and resignation, almost as if to say, "Doc, I've been eating like this all my life. How can it suddenly be a problem now?" And that's the tough truth, isn't it? For decades, we go about our routines thinking nothing of them, and then one day our bodies remind us that time is moving forward and that those habits carry consequences. I explained to George, and I want to explain to you, that inflammation in the prostate doesn't happen overnight. It's like rust on a car. You don't see it forming when you drive it every day, but slowly, quietly, little spots of rust creep in until one day it spreads so much that it can't be ignored. The same thing is true inside your body. Year after year of choices build up, and the prostate becomes more reactive, more sensitive, and more likely to swell and cause problems. One of the biggest culprits is diet. Foods that are heavy in processed oils, fried meals, and those sugary snacks many of us enjoy in retirement can silently irritate the body. Add alcohol into the mix, especially the evening drinks many men turn to for relaxation, and you have a perfect recipe for inflammation. George loved his nightly whiskey and chips, and while he thought they were harmless habits, they were quietly adding fuel to the fire. But here's the part I really want you to hear. The same way these choices can inflame the prostate, better choices can cool it down. I've seen it time and again. When men reduce those trigger foods and bring in more anti-inflammatory options, like leafy greens, berries, and healthy fats from fish or olive oil, the prostate responds. It's as though you're pouring water on that fire instead of gasoline. George was skeptical at first, but once he began shifting his plate, the relief was noticeable within weeks. Of course, food isn't the only piece of the puzzle. Stress plays a surprisingly large role. Men often don't connect stress to their prostate, but let me tell you, I've seen it countless times. When the mind is in constant tension, the body responds with inflammation. George carried a lot of quiet worry. Even in retirement, he was anxious about money, about his family, about whether he was useful anymore. That constant low-level stress was like a dripping faucet, slowly wearing him down, and his prostate felt the impact. When we worked on stress management together, simple things like daily walking, deep breathing, and even learning to give himself permission to relax, George noticed not just improvement in his bathroom trips, but in his overall energy and mood. That's the beauty of addressing inflammation at its root. It doesn't just help the prostate, it improves every part of your life. Now, I know some of you listening right now might be nodding because this resonates. And if that's the case, please take a quick moment to like this video and subscribe if you haven't already. Tap that bell so you'll always know when I share new advice. And please, let me know in the comments below. Type yes if you believe stress has affected your health in ways you didn't expect, or no if you don't think stress plays a role for you. I do read your answers, and they help me guide these talks in a way that serves you best. Back to George. The more we looked at his life, the more connections we found. Even his sleep was out of balance. He was waking multiple times a night, not just because of the urge to urinate, but because his prostate discomfort kept him from resting deeply. And as many of you already know, poor sleep only worsens inflammation. It becomes a vicious cycle. The prostate keeps you up at night, and then the lack of sleep makes the inflammation worse. George was exhausted, frustrated, and starting to lose hope. But here's the transformation that gives me so much joy to share. Once George started making consistent changes, cleaning up his diet, addressing stress, and improving his sleep hygiene, his body responded. It didn't happen overnight, but little by little, the nighttime trips slowed down, his discomfort eased, and most importantly, George started to feel like himself again. He was no longer planning his days around the nearest bathroom. Instead, he was planning fishing trips, family dinners, and even road trips with his wife. This is why I say to you today, don't underestimate the power of small steps. Many men look for quick fixes or magic pills, but true relief comes when you get to the root. Inflammation is like a warning light on your dashboard. If you cover it with tape and ignore it, the engine keeps suffering. But if you look under the hood and address the real problem, the light goes off and the car runs smoothly again. Your body is the same way. I want you to picture for a moment what your days could feel like with less inflammation. Imagine sleeping through the night, waking up refreshed, and going about your day without that constant nagging urge. Imagine the confidence of sitting with your friends, laughing and talking, without quietly planning your exit to the restroom. That's not a dream. It's absolutely possible, and I've seen it happen for men in their 60s, 70s, and beyond. George thought his best days were behind him, but once he faced the root of his inflammation, he realized his later years could be some of the best. That's the gift I want you to have too. The freedom to live your life without being chained to discomfort, worry, or embarrassment. And it begins by understanding what's inflaming your prostate and choosing differently.
When George came back for his 3-month follow-up, I'll never forget the smile on his face. He sat down in my office, leaned forward, and said, "Doc, I didn't think this was possible. I thought my life was just going to be bathroom breaks and sleepless nights, but now I feel like I've got my freedom back." That freedom of body, of mind, and of spirit is exactly what I want you to experience too. By now, you understand that prostate inflammation isn't just an inconvenience. It's not simply about frequent urination or discomfort. It is a signal, a flare from your body that something deeper is out of balance. For George, the balance returned when he started changing the way he ate, managed stress, and cared for his sleep. But there's another important layer I want to talk to you about, one that many men overlook: circulation and movement. You see, the prostate is part of your reproductive and urinary system, but it is also deeply tied to blood flow. When men sit for long hours, whether watching TV, reading, or simply because mobility is reduced with age, blood can pool and circulation to the lower body becomes sluggish. That stagnant environment is like fertile soil for inflammation. George was no different. He loved his recliner and could sit there for hours without moving. When I explained how this lifestyle was contributing to his prostate troubles, he looked at me with surprise. "You mean my sitting is making things worse?" he asked. Yes, it was. When George started incorporating light movement throughout his day, walking after meals, gentle stretches in the mornings, even choosing to stand and pace while on phone calls, his circulation improved. That fresh flow of oxygen-rich blood to his pelvis and prostate helped reduce the irritation and sped up his healing. It's a reminder that our bodies are designed for motion, not stillness. And no matter your age, gentle, consistent movement can be one of the most powerful medicines you'll ever have. Now, I can almost hear some of you saying, "Doc, I'm not as strong as I used to be. I can't do long workouts." And you don't have to. That's the beauty of it. 10 to 15 minutes of walking after each meal or simple chair stretches in your living room can make a world of difference. The goal isn't to push yourself hard. The goal is to keep blood flowing, joints moving, and inflammation down. That's the secret. And here's something else many men don't realize. Excess weight around the belly is one of the strongest drivers of prostate inflammation. That spare tire, as many jokingly call it, isn't just sitting there harmlessly. It's active tissue producing inflammatory chemicals that circulate throughout your body, including your prostate. George carried extra pounds around his middle, and once he began losing even a little of it, his prostate symptoms started to calm down faster. He didn't have to lose 50 pounds, even 10 made a noticeable difference. I want to pause here and invite you to think about your own daily habits. Are you moving enough? Are you carrying extra weight that might be working against your prostate health? If this is speaking to you, do me a favor. Hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and tap that bell icon so you'll never miss when I release new guidance. And please, in the comments below, type yes if you're willing to commit to moving more each day, or no if you feel it's not realistic for you right now. Your feedback really does guide me, and I want to know what you need most. Let me take you back to George. With each follow-up, he wasn't just reporting fewer bathroom trips, he was telling me about the joy of walking hand in hand with his wife after dinner, something he hadn't done in years. He shared how he felt more energy to play with his grandson, how he was finally sleeping better, and how intimacy with his wife had returned with more comfort and confidence. That's the bigger picture here. Prostate health doesn't live in isolation. When you reduce inflammation, your whole body benefits, your relationships benefit, and your outlook on life improves. Another point I made to George, and I want you to hear this as clearly as possible, is that hydration matters. So many older men drink less water because they're afraid of triggering bathroom trips. But this backfires. Dehydration makes urine more concentrated, irritating the bladder and prostate even more. It's like putting salt on a wound. George was guilty of this. Once he committed to steady hydration, small sips throughout the day rather than avoiding water, his symptoms eased further. Yes, at first it felt counterintuitive, but his body thanked him for it. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. You are not powerless in this fight. Prostate inflammation may feel like it's running your life, but with knowledge and consistent steps, you can take back control. George's transformation proves it. He didn't do anything extreme. He didn't rely on miracle cures or unproven remedies. He simply addressed the root causes: diet, stress, sleep, movement, weight, hydration, and his body rewarded him with relief. Imagine what it would mean for you to have that same kind of turnaround, to feel steady energy through your day, to laugh with your family without interruption, to fall asleep and stay asleep until morning. These are not luxuries, they are your birthright, your body's natural state when it is cared for properly. That's the message I want you to carry today. Prostate inflammation isn't a sentence, it's a signal, and signals are meant to guide us. If you listen to your body and respond with care, it will respond back with healing. George listened, and his later years are now richer than he thought possible. And you can choose the same path.
By the time George and I met for his 6-month follow-up, I could hardly recognize the man sitting across from me. He looked lighter, not just in body, but in spirit. His face carried a calmness that hadn't been there before. He said, "Doc, I feel like I got my life back. I didn't realize how much my prostate was stealing from me until I started feeling better again." That sentence stuck with me because it perfectly describes what so many men experience. They adapt to years of discomfort, sleepless nights, and frustration, thinking it's normal. But when relief finally comes, they realize just how much of life they've been missing. George wasn't just sleeping through the night now, he was planning vacations with his wife, saying yes to family gatherings without worrying about bathrooms, and rediscovering the intimacy in his marriage that he thought was gone forever. The change was profound, and it was possible because he faced the truth about what was inflaming his prostate, and he made the choice to take control. And my friend, that's where I want to leave you today, with that same hope. Because here's the bottom line. Your prostate does not have to define the way you live your later years. It doesn't have to keep you up at night, it doesn't have to rob you of joy, and it doesn't have to dictate your freedom. What inflames the prostate can also be calmed. When you reduce those triggers, whether it's unhealthy foods, excess stress, lack of movement, or poor hydration, you are giving your body the chance to heal, to restore balance, and to reward you with strength and comfort. You've heard me share George's journey from frustration to freedom, and I want you to picture yourself in that same seat. Imagine sitting with your doctor 6 months from now and saying, "I can't believe how much better I feel. I didn't think this was possible." That can be your story too. Age does not mean giving up vitality. It means being wise enough to make choices that support the body you have today. I also want to say this. If you've been feeling discouraged, embarrassed, or even hopeless about your prostate health, please know you are not alone. I've seen thousands of men walk through my office doors carrying those same feelings. And I've seen those same men leave with renewed energy, restored confidence, and a brighter outlook on life. The key is to stop ignoring the warning signs and start taking small, consistent steps forward. So let me encourage you to begin today. Drink more water, add 1 serving of greens or berries to your meals, take a walk after dinner, go to bed at a steady time, and find moments of quiet to ease your stress. They may sound simple, but together they build the foundation for lasting prostate health. And the reward is not just fewer bathroom trips, it's better sleep, stronger relationships, more freedom, and a richer, fuller life. Now, if you found value in this conversation, please do me a small favor. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and tap that bell so you don't miss the guidance I'll continue to share. And in the comments below, type yes if you're ready to start making these small changes for your prostate health, or no if you feel like you're not ready yet. Your responses really do matter. I read them personally, and they help me know how best to serve you moving forward. As we close, I want you to think back to the very first question I asked you at the start of this talk. Do you wake up at night? Do you feel that nagging discomfort? Do you struggle to fully empty your bladder? If you answered yes, remember that these are not signs of defeat. They are signals guiding you toward change. And as George's story shows, change is not only possible, it can be life-changing. So take heart, my friend. You are not powerless and you are not alone. With the right choices, your prostate can calm. Your nights can become restful again, and your days can once again be filled with freedom, energy, and joy. That is my hope for you, and that is why I continue to share these conversations. This is Dr. Nolan Easton, thanking you for spending this time with me. Stay strong, stay hopeful, and remember, your best days are not behind you, they are still ahead.